Tremaine Hicks, a black man, heroically came to the aid of a woman who was being raped outside. Her assailant fled before he arrived. Police appeared shortly afterwards, however, and they shot Tremaine in the back 3 times, booked him for the rape, and then just left him to rot in prison. It wasn't until the Innocence Project came into the picture that Tremaine was released 20 years later. And although his freedom was sweet, it didn't make up for the injustice he'd suffered. We need to address the issues surrounding wrongful conviction and the broken exoneration process, which disproportionately affects Black Americans like myself. And freedom isn't nearly enough. Axios, September 12, 2022, unveils that despite representing only 13.6% of the American population, Black Americans account for 53% of exonerations. Worse, they're 7.5 times more likely to be convicted of murder and 50% more likely to be convicted due to the misconduct of police officers. First, we'll look at the problems that arise from wrongful conviction and the exoneration process. Second, we'll investigate the causes together. And then finally, hope to present solutions to transform exonerations so that no one has to suffer to prove their innocence. Ana Vasquez and 3 other women were wrongfully imprisoned, spending 13 years behind bars. Ana recounted the mental toll of her experience. Talking about your feelings or your emotions in prison was not to be done, so I was deeply depressed. Ana's plight is similar to what other exonerated people of color experience. Let's look at the problems through 1, what exoneration is, 2, the mental health effects, and 3, the societal stigma against exonerees. The definition of exoneration is straightforward. However, the process is broken. The National Registry of Exoneration, November 11, 2022, explains that exoneration occurs when a person who's previously convicted of a crime is officially cleared after new evidence of innocence becomes available. USA Today, August 26, 2022, recalls the Groveland Four, how in 1962, 4 young Black men were arrested and tortured until police acquired a false testimony. One was later killed in a manhunt. A sheriff shot 2 others, claiming self-defense. By playing dead, Walter Irvin was the sole survivor and eventually experienced exoneration 70 years after his death. Considering how the majority of exonerees are people of color and Black Americans, the mental toll of their time in prison is guaranteed to change them forever. Penn State University, January 28, 2022, warns that the wrongfully convicted experience debilitating shock and disbelief. Now, prison is difficult under any circumstance. Thus, this amplifies the stresses and traumas, making them much, much greater. The Marshall Project, July 30th, 2022, uncovered that more than half of exonerees displayed significant signs of PTSD, higher than the reported rate amongst combat veterans. And now, while considered legally innocent of their crimes, exonerated Black Americans face insurmountable challenges of re-entering society. They receive little to no education while incarcerated, struggle with future employment, and are practically ineligible for almost all forms of public assistance, like welfare. Chantel Fahmy, a professor at the University of Texas, San Antonio, affirms they're completely alienated from all forms of mainstream life, period. Ana Vasquez, an openly gay woman, was wrongfully accused of supposedly raping her niece, from whom police had acquired a false testimony from the 6-year-old child. The minor was coerced and threatened by her homophobic father into giving that false testimony. False testimony is a major common cause of wrongful convictions. Let's investigate the causes together through 1, the systemic racism in this legal system, and 2, the lengthy exoneration process. First, wrongful convictions occur primarily because of systemic racism in the legal system. The University of Michigan, April 12, 2022, highlights that 61% of false accusations are caused by perjury and other false testimonies by witnesses and police officers, while 56% of cases are actually due to governmental misconduct, such as laziness, lack of resources, and even determined efforts to secure convictions, even if the evidence does not support it. NPR, September 10, 2022, reveals that Black Americans tend to fall victim to false identification in a lineup simply because people have a difficult time identifying individuals who are of a different race. Now, considering the abundance of wrongful accusations, proving your innocence will cost an exorbitant amount of time and energy. The Washington Post, March 15, 2022, recovered a story of how a 15-year-old girl had been raped in Detroit. Her attacker was described as a man with braids and a puzzle tattoo on his arm. Terrence Calhoun, who was then just 19 years old, was arrested and convicted of the crime, even though he did not wear braids or have that puzzle tattoo. Through a recent audit of untested sexual assault kits, it became clear that Calhoun's DNA did not even match the biological material that was found at the crime scene. However, due to a years-long backlog, it took Calhoun 15 years to be exonerated for a crime that he did not even commit. It wasn't until years later that Vasquez's niece came forward and admitted she'd been forced to give that false testimony. However, Vasquez now serves as the Director of Outreach for the Innocence Project of Texas, and she hopes that she can be that beacon of light and that resource to those who are in her previous position. We need to support Vasquez and others with solutions such as supporting the Innocence and Exoneration projects and holding accountable prosecutors who are wrongfully accusing. So, we need to support the Innocence and Exoneration projects to rectify the past and present victims who are just cheated out of their futures. The Exoneration Project is a branch of the Innocence Project and is one of the most successful, largest, and best funded nonprofit groups in the country. They strive for greater accountability in the justice system, and they work hard to ensure that their exonerees are able to re-enter society with the support that they need to be prosperous and successful. I have created a QR code that links directly to the Innocence Project's donation site, which will allow visitors to explore the many capabilities that the nonprofit has to offer. Please scan this QR code for more information. Not only do we need to support these nonprofit groups, but we need to apply pressure to the unethical prosecutors who are wrongfully convicting, thus creating the need for exonerations in the first place. Bloomberg Law, March 10th, 2022, recovered a story of Texan Michael Morton, who spent 25 years in prison for allegedly murdering his own wife. Ken Anderson, the prosecutor who oversaw the case, actually hid evidence that would have proven Morton's innocence. Now, Anderson was just sentenced to 10 days for his misconduct. However, this makes Anderson the only prosecutor in history to ever be held accountable for his corruption, which was made possible by the Innocence Project. Morton emphasizes the importance of bringing awareness to the power of these groups to ensure the future of their exonerees. First, we looked at the problems surrounding wrongful conviction and broken exoneration process. Second, we investigated the causes together. And then finally, presented solutions to transform exonerations and end these injustices once and for all. Wrongful conviction and the broken exoneration process have persisted for far too long, and they must be addressed now. As a society, we need to remind ourselves that with empathy and supporting and donating to these nonprofit groups, adversity can be overcome with a unified approach.